found out that if you have 2 cars on your car insurance, this is 100% what you should be doing. So I found this website, and look at the difference. $159 a month. I thought this was the best price I could find. Don't even look anywhere else. This is the best price, right? Wrong. Now look at my new price. $47 a month for 2 cars. And honestly, the whole process to shop for better car insurance options blew me away. And I didn't have to jump through a ton of hoops to get matched and switched. So many of us are paying way more than we need to just because we never bother to check for better options. So if you want to try this website, I put the link below. It took 2 minutes to get matched with an insurance provider. Super fast. You gotta trust me on this. Just try it out.
So would that be your responsibility to record a new name with a new personality?
So we don't necessarily record it, but we are actually in the process of building a database, so that exorcists would have access to the database. Because some of the common ones like Satan Lucifer and those things, or even some of the more common ones like Abaddon, who's the demon of destruction, you'll get, you can find out a fair amount of information about these guys. We'll put those in the database, but there's a lot of ones that are less known, and so exorcists come across them. I've come across demons that other exorcists haven't. They've come across demons that I've never even heard of, or nobody's ever even heard of, and it seems authentic, etc. So we want to get a database so that going forward, exorcists, if they come across somebody, they don't have to spend all the time doing the research. They can just quickly go take a look at the database and get a sense of, this is what the guy's weaknesses are, this is what he got out in these these cases, this is what got him out, this is his history. Because like if the god of Isis or Osiris, those are Egyptian gods, but those are also demons. So if you know what those are, then you can actually, you don't have to go and read a bunch of Egyptian in order to know what these guys are.
Can a demon possess multiple people at one time?
Yeah, you can. I actually had a case of that, well, 2 cases, where the same possessor was possessing 2 sisters who were blood related. And so when we would do sessions with one, the other one would manifest from time to time outside of the session.
Holy shit.
So we had to do a lot of stuff to keep them, from what we call cross animation, which is where, when they're around each other, the demons are going to manifest. So you see that from time to time where someone who's possessed, they'll get around someone else who's possessed, and whoever has the lower demons in them will be the one where the lowest demon will manifest in the presence of the bigger demon. But they can possess more than one. They generally can only act on one thing at a time.
Okay.
Like Thomas Aquinas says that they can act on a number of different things at the same time if it all falls under the same conceptual idea. So, for example, someone can juggle where they're keeping several things in the air at once. Demons can act on, like, I'm going to act on these 3 people that I'm possessing because I'm, my access to them is the same. And so they can act on 3 people at the same time. But normally they don't do that.
And it sounds like all of these demons were false gods at some point. You said god of a Norse god, Egyptian gods, Baal, Moloch.
Yeah. Not
Baphomet.
Yeah, so all the gods of the Gentiles are demons, which is true. I mean, the only ones I haven't come across are ones like for the Romans. Like I haven't come across Mars or Jupiter or something like that. But the Egyptian gods come across, several of those. The Norse ones are taking them. They're rising up because of they're being introduced or being used in video games and things of that sort that the young men are doing. So you're starting to see more of those. But not all the demons made themselves out to be a god to someone else. So Satan never really did, even though he wants people to worship him. He doesn't have a specific religion. He wants his own.
And they all fall under him.
They do, yeah.
What about Greek gods?
Yeah, it's the same. Some I've seen exorcists see, and some we haven't. So, I suspect at some point some exorcist has come across, Venus or whatever, but we just don't hear about it too often.
And so when we get into, or I mean, looking back, when we're talking about Norse gods, Baal, Moloch, Greek god, any gods that, throughout history, does that mean that those gods were introduced by a demon?
Very often. So what will happen is, historically, either the demon will possess somebody in a particular culture, and then from there, the person kind of becomes like this oracle from which the rituals and the worship is designed, and the people are swayed into doing it. You're not going to have a case where they're actually going to appear as a general rule, although that has happened historically, where demons will appear as angels of light, and claim to be, from God, and then say this is what you're supposed to do, then getting the person to start their own religion. We've seen that happen a couple of times, actually. One in more modern history, and one year 600. So we've seen those particular things happen.
What was the one in modern history?
The Mormons. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of the Mormons out there who are not going to be happy that I said that, but the angel that appeared to him, it actually gets to the line from St. Paul, which is actually on the outside of the cathedral in Salt Lake, if I'm not mistaken, but out possess somebody in a particular culture, and then from there, the person kind of becomes like this oracle from which the rituals and the worship is designed, and the people are swayed into doing it. You're not going to have a case where they're actually going to appear as a general rule, although that has happened historically, where demons will appear as angels of light, and claim to be, from God, and then say this is what you're supposed to do, then getting the person to start their own religion. We've seen that happen a couple of times, actually. One in more modern history, and one year 600. So we've seen those particular things happen.
What was the one in modern history?
The Mormons. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of the Mormons out there who are not going to be happy that I said that, but the angel that appeared to him, it actually gets to the line from St. Paul, which is actually on the outside of the cathedral in Salt Lake, if I'm not mistaken, but out on the outside of it, even if an angel were to preach to you another gospel. So you have those those particular things that are actually, and the other thing is too, is that, at least in the relationship with the Mormons, I don't want to get too deep into it, but that it's actually, it's a modified form of Freemasonry anyway.
I mean, that sounds like the ultimate deception. If they come to you in a light, to appear to be angelic, I mean,
Yeah.
how does that look in God's eyes? Fall into that deception.
Well, God's allowing it, obviously, because they literally, like I said, the battlefield is completely determined by Christ. So Christ is allowing it. And I once asked this one colleague of mine, I said, well, what do you think is the reason for the Muslims? And he said, to afflict the West. And so God will allow these particular things to afflict us in order for us to get our act together, but also to reveal to us that, look, if you start your own religion, it's just going to go bad and it's just not going to be true. So I think in God's eyes, I think that's part of it. But I think on the side of the human beings, we're just easily deceived. Because humans they can present themselves in a very positive light. Everywhere from anything from actually appearing as an angel of light. The people actually see this bright figure appear in front of them, all the way down to giving people amorous feelings. To where so the person says, oh, it must be from God because, it's helping me to love people more. No, that's not necessarily the case.
Will we be judged for that? I mean, that it just sounds like the ultimate deception, almost. And he allowed it.
Yeah.
So can we be blamed if we're that? I mean, earlier you had mentioned, we're stupid. We are stupid.
We are stupid. On the other hand, we're not that stupid. So, what degree of deception, ultimately God would be able to judge the particular individual soul. So it might be possible that someone started their own religion not knowing that they were completely deceived. But my experience in reading about these people's history is there's often points that after they've had these experiences that it becomes clear to them, or they start having the thoughts, maybe I'm possessed, or maybe this isn't from
فرصة لنجربه إذا مشي بكون مشي ما مشي خليه يصوت لحاله يسقطوا الإسرائيلي مش نحن نسقطه بس تجي العالم مرة فرجي إنه نخلص
And so they don't take the necessary steps to properly discern it. The other thing is too is, it's kind of that line in scripture, I was duped and I let myself be duped. People, the demons appeal to people's pride of God has chosen you to start this religion. And so that's one of the signs you always see in people who start the religion. It's always a pride element. So they let themselves be deceived.
And then it continues because of pride.
Yeah, that's right. Well, then, yeah, and plus they get all the attention, fanfare, etc.
which plays under the pride.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you've seen during an exorcism? Levitation, you had mentioned shape-shifting.
Yeah. If you've seen it on Hollywood, I've seen it. But it's only in about 7% of the cases are you going to see things that are really out there. Most of the cases, the thing that you're going to see the most of is morphing. That's our technical name for it. You're mentioning shape shifting. We call it morphing, which is basically where the person changes form or shape. And that's about, in the cases that you have, that's about 80 to 90% of what you're going to see, where the person will actually change shape. And so they'll, for example, the women will change, all of a sudden their facial structure changes and it looks like a man. So,
Like a skinwalker.
yeah, exactly. And so there's also certain kind of complexion changes, but the morphing can be everything from just all the
Have you personally seen this?
most of the ones that I've been knowledgeable about is what exorcists who trained me have seen, or in the cases that they've seen. So I did assist a priest in a case where anytime the priest would put his stole on the back of the person's head, the front of the person's face would just go and change into the shape of a wolf. The guys would just come out. If he'd take it back off, he'd go back. And so, things of that. Usually, like I said, if you're seeing the change of shape, it's telling you something about them. And that's why, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, they tend to be showmen, and so a lot of it's just parlor tricks. You have to know when you're just being played with and just ignore it. Which is with levitation, I just don't tolerate it. I've seen it, and
How many times have you seen it?
personally, I've only seen it twice, but that's only because I tend to see other things like extreme forms of occult knowledge where people know stuff that there's no way this person could ever know this. Exorcists, well, so like if you go to Italy, there's one exorcist, he sees levitation almost all the time. Other exorcists who have done it as long as I have never even seen it. So it changes depending based upon the particular exorcist. He'll tend to see more things other than once. I've seen a lot of morphing, that type of thing. But the one I tend to see the most is occult knowledge or language, speaking languages that there's no way to. In fact, I kind of laughed because when they put out the movie Nefarious, they were doing interviews afterwards, and they said, "Oh yeah, we consulted Father Whipper." And I remember talking to these guys, so I contacted my, they seemed straightforward enough, and the movie was actually pretty decent as far as it goes. And I'm like, so I asked my assistant, do we have any interaction with these guys? No, we got none. Well, then later they said, oh no, we just listened to all the videos, right? But in there they got something wrong though, because there was an actual case where this guy that was possessed started speaking a form of Phoenician that had been funk for 3,500 years. We didn't even know what he was speaking. We had to write it down phonetically. And then somebody who studies languages took a look at it and said, we think that's how this particular form of Phoenician was spoken. This kid didn't even finish high school. So you'll see, they'll see different things, but yeah, I've seen levitation twice. Like I said,
what are you thinking when you see levitation?
I get annoyed by it, frankly.
That's it? You just get annoyed?
Yeah, because of the fact that usually they're doing it like the case that I had, one of them was Ball. He likes levitating. So I just don't tolerate it because he's trying to distract you and get you focusing on, well, that's kind of weird. Never seen that before. You know, that's what he's trying to get you to do. And you should be focusing on other things and just hammering him. And it's just his way to try and gain control.
Are you the only pilot?
I am, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. Parachute laceration.
Yeah, it looks like I went through some trees and whatever.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Jackson, I'm glad you're safe. I'm gonna let you go.
All right, man. Thank you very much for the help. I'm with the Sherpa.
Oh, it's ours, and I'm out with the pilot right now. He ejected. Yeah, we're on the backside of Rimrock, kind of by South Fork Bear Cove area. Their fire and aid's on their way right now. We got the hillside on fire where the jet landed. What kind of jet is that?
That's an F-8. Well, that was.
An F-18? I heard you guys.
Yep, we were doing circles over the wake, doing in some low-level training.
Okay.
And then I tucked in, and I'm not sure exactly. Honestly, I'm a little...
No, you're fine.
When I tucked in,
You hit the tree bad, bud.
I went through the trees.
Are you the only pilot?
I am, sir.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. Let me see. Parachute laceration.
Yeah, it looks like I went through some trees and whatever.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Jackson, I'm glad you're safe. I'm gonna let you go.
All right, man. Thank you very much for the help. I'm with the Sherpa.
Oh, it's ours, and I'm out with the pilot right now. He ejected. Yeah, we're on the backside of Rimrock, kind of by South Fork Bear Cove area. There.
kidnappades. Alltså det vill man
for the particular sessions. So that's why I just don't tolerate it. That's why in the beginning I said those set of prayers we say before we start the formal rite, to clamp down on any of that type of thing from happening.
Do you ever worry that you'll be the one that's deceived?
Well, you get deceived from time to time as an exorcist anyway, because you'll ask them not necessarily about the broader picture, like in theology or things like that, but they're going to deceive you about the particulars of the case. They'll say things like, "Oh, well, the way you're going to get me out of here is you have to say this prayer, over her 3 times," or something like that. And then so like, all right, that could be the case. So then you say it 3 times and then nothing happens. And then they'll laugh at you, and you just work on your humility, knowing that that's going to happen, and Christ lets it happen for the sake of your own sanctification and for your own recognition that ultimately they only have to tell you what they tell you when he tells them they have to tell you. And so even though you're commanding them, and sometimes they'll give you information because Christ tells them, okay, you can tell them this stuff, but you can't talk about this stuff yet, or what have you. And so there's times when you're hammering them for weeks on end, and they say, "I'll tell you, I can't, he won't let me tell you." Now sometimes they're lying even about that, but usually you can kind of tell, because the way that when they're telling you the truth about something when they're under duress is they'll give you a flat hand answer, like, "No, it's this." Whereas they're bad liars, so when they're lying to you, it's like listening to a 16-year-old girl who got caught being outside the house by her father. Like, "What are you doing outside?" No, it wasn't this, that kind of a thing. So they're bad. They're really bad liars as a general, and the stuff that they propose is just silly. But the other thing is it's coherent. It's called the principle of coherence. It fits the possession case, or what you know theologically to be the case. And so that this particular, so for one case, the demons kept saying she has to go to Lourdes. She has to go to Lourdes. Well, God had been giving her grace to want to go to Lourdes and go into the waters, and so she went to Lourdes, went into the waters, and came out, and then was partially liberated. So there's a lot of times you can kind of ferret out, but you do get deceived. It's just part of the humiliation. The other thing is they'll make a fool of you. They have from time to time, because they know we're just not that bright compared to them, and they also have. They know the structure and the dynamics of the spiritual realities that we're dealing with, which we don't necessarily know them. And so they know we don't know them. But that's why, as an exorcist, you have to stay in your lane. You have to stay. There's a set of principles and ways in which you proceed, and you just stay there, and eventually you'll get him out. Just don't go outside that, because they'll try and entice you outside those lanes.
What are some of the other things that you've seen? I mean, have you seen somebody that can turn their head 360 degrees, the spider walk?
Yeah, I haven't seen the 360 degree head turning, but I have seen, like where the fingers just are like completely turned back on the thing, or they'll be like this instead of, like this. So you'll see things that you actually see like, and that's actually part of the morphing in relationship to the thing. Like I said, the thing I tend to see the most is the demons manifesting in their characteristics in a full-blown manner. So once the demons get to a certain point where the threshold, their pain is such, they can't hide from you they're in the manifestation, because they're controlling the manifestation and they're controlling what you see. But when they reach a certain level, they start breaking down. And so, it's just seeing full-blown manifestations where they, for example, with Beelzebub, he would always, he looks the same in every case I've ever had him in, where the jaw extends out, the eyes narrow, and then the eyes become bloodshot, they narrow, and the top of the head narrows, and the complexion becomes, it looks like someone who's had super bad acne. So you get that kind of complexion change, color changes. I've seen a lot of color changes that you see in people. Saw a woman. She was possessed by a demon who responded to the title Vitae Raptor, which is robber of life. So the first time we got him to manifest, it was in front of the Blessed Sacrament. It's a ritual that's done in front of the Blessed Sacrament. When he finally manifested, literally her face just like caved in, and she literally turned completely jet black like a corpse. And so I'm like, well, there he is. So you'll see things like that.
Do any of these demons intimidate you? Any specific ones?
No, part of the reason is because I know that if I stay in my lane, and as long as I'm doing what Christ is asking me to do, and I stay under his protection, that I'm going to be safe. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to get beat around a little bit. You're stepping into a boxing ring, so you're going to get beat around a little bit. That I get. But if you stay in your lane, you're going to be able to handle it, and God's going to give you the grace to be able to use it. When demons attack me again, they always say, with a boxer, you can watch all the films you like about the boxer, but it's not until you're in the ring with him that you actually get a sense of what he's really like in the ring. And it's the same thing with them. It's when you're in the boxing ring, anytime they attack you, the cause is always somewhere in the effect. So they actually reveal something about you. So one time I was attacked by this one demon of fear that was possessing this one woman, and it actually gave me a sense of the species, of the nature of the fear, the quality of it, the degree of it. It gave me a sense of it. And so when we went into the next session, I was able to bind that and hammer it, and then start doing what I call the pinata. okay, I've hit the thing. Now you just go around it and you just keep whacking it until you find out from different angles what more information you can get out of that particular thing. And so one demon one time said to me, he said, I'm not talking to you anymore. So I commanded him in the name of Jesus Christ to command to tell me why. He says, every time I say something, you use it against me. I almost said to him, well, what do you think this is? So that's the thing. So when they attack you, they don't really intimidate you. I've only been scared twice in a session. One's the first time I did it, and it wasn't about the demon. It was like, I hope I don't do something stupid. But then the only other time was in a case that I worked on where the demon would not obey what I was telling him to do. So I just mentally said to God the Father, I said, punish him in a way he's never been punished before. And all of a sudden, the woman who's possessed just goes down on her knees, completely manifests into that literally looks exactly like this demon. And all of a sudden, he just screams out this horrific scream, painful scream. But it wasn't loud, not much louder than you and I were talking, but it was the type of sound that Hollywood could not recreate. It was the type of sound where it literally reverberated throughout the entire church. We were actually in the basement, and my sacristan, who's all the way on the other side, heard it. It didn't shake the foundation of the church, but it was like just reverberated so strong. And when he heard that, he went running out. And when I looked at his face when the demon was screaming, the thought that ran through my mind was, that's what hell looks like. This is what someone in hell looks like. And then the other thing that ran through my mind is the severity and exactitude of God's justice, that God will not be mocked. So people are going to, you have to pay for your sin. And he extracts it from the demons. They'll tell you that he sets them up very often to have to suffer some punishment so that the particular sin that they committed is avenged.
Can you describe what that looks like? When you just talked about the demon manifesting itself in its true form, what did that look like?
So basically, this was Beelzebub. So her face completely morphed. This woman turned into the facial structure of a man. The jaws literally extend out like this. The eyes go narrow. Because Beelzebub's the demon of impurity, the eyes go bloodshot, which is an indicator that people who suffer from lust don't see reality for what it is, but the eyes went completely bloodshot. The head narrowed. And then her complexion, as I mentioned, turns into that. But then there's a change in color to where it's a color that no human being can replicate. The authors refer to it as cherry wood color, which is this brown-red color that looks like someone who is literally in the middle of a fire burning. So that's what you see. And then, of course, there is the burnt look around the various facial features. So that there's this darkness or blackness around the particular facial features. And then, of course, the body gets bulkier in size.
When you talk about, the fingers becoming disjointed, and what's the recovery period look like?
Strangely enough, there's only certain kinds of affliction that the demons, when they manifest, that the person actually has to recover from. Most of the things like that, the person doesn't feel anything, or they don't have to have any recovery. They come out feeling normal, and things turn back to their natural shape, and they don't have anything to recover from.
Wow. You had mentioned the thing that you see the most is occult knowledge.
Yeah.
And we chatted a little bit about this before the interview, but we spoke with some of your colleagues, and it sounds like the I don't know how to say it, the church, the hierarchy, somebody doesn't want you doing this.
That's true.
And so when you're talking about occult knowledge, this colleague of yours that told me this, he said that the demons are calling out sins of people very high up in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want those sins to get out.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they want you gone. Why is that? Is that the occult knowledge that you're speaking of?
It's part of it. So, in the ritual, there's what they call Chapter 1, which is, it's a set of rubrics, how to proceed and what's going to happen in the context of a session. And one of them is that the demons will reveal crimes that have occurred. And so in the cases that I've been in, they have not revealed much about the people in the civil authorities, their crimes, so much as they have about the very specific rituals and crimes that people in the hierarchy have committed. And so they've talked about very specific details, given specific details. And it's not just me, other exorcists are also, they get bits and pieces of this stuff. They don't necessarily have the same full understanding that I have, because the demons have revealed, pretty much the full complexion of what's going on in the church. And it's the fact that the authority structure has been spiritually compromised by some of these people that are in it, that are not, they're obviously involved in things that they shouldn't be involved in. And so, but the other exorcists, even the names of the people involved, the demons have said to us, they've actually meant, not just to me, but to other exorcists, they'll actually say, yes, he mentioned this particular person and this particular person, etc. And so we do have a fairly good complexion. And by the way, I'm not the first guy that this has happened to. The Father Amorth, who was the head exorcist in Rome for like 40 years, he complained about this very problem that had been going on since he was just starting being an exorcist. The head exorcist in Rome, one of the head exorcists in Rome, I'm not going to mention him because I don't want people calling him up and saying, who are these people, right? But he has also complained. We have people that are fairly high up. Now, I don't know how much know me by name specifically. I suspect this. I also know that some of those, I don't know the specific names, but there have been some people that work in the Vatican who just aren't pleased with some of the work that I'm doing, and
how could you not be pleased with casting demons out of society?
Well, if you're involved in particular sins that are particularly egregious, you're not going to want someone like me who is out there trying to teach people about the faith and helping them fight the good fight and become more knowledgeable about their faith. You're not going to want that. And that's the problem that we're actually seeing. We also get a sense too of like how these guys get inducted to that type of stuff. It starts to come out, in the sessions. The demons have talked about how these, and it's not stuff that I've ever asked. It's the demons are compelled sometimes by our Lord to talk about this stuff. So there's times like this one case that I'm working on right now. When I'm saying Mass, which we start the sessions with, very often what will happen is during the Mass, the demon will manifest. And that tells me that God has told him he's had to tell me something. And so during the session, something will come out, and very often it revolves around this stuff that's happened. But I've had more than one case talk about the stuff that's going on in the church, that it's spiritual, that it's leadership, not all of it, but some of its leadership is very morally compromised, and some of it is involved in stuff that's very dark.
This kind of goes along with what I was talking about earlier. How do you know you're not going to be deceived?
Yeah.
Because if people way up have been deceived, or maybe they haven't been deceived, maybe they just switch teams.
Right, yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's both. I think sometimes it's both. There is a book that was just recently put out by